as a physician, when I practiced at Turtle Mountain for many years, and I would talk to my patients a bit about nutrition, I'd frequently hear the complaint that, well, I just can't afford to eat healthy. And I think, as Mandy touched on, it's not necessary to have a lot of money to eat healthy. And many times we end up wasting money on food that's bad for us when we could make a change. So think about what you value in a food. First of all, of course, it has to taste good. Otherwise, there's not much point in eating it. You can't get your children to eat it, as Mandy knows can be difficult. It should be good for you, for your body, good for your health, not too expensive, and generally easy to prepare. So when you talk about nutrition, most people kind of automatically start thinking about protein. You know, they look for protein in their diet. And the reason is they say, oh, well, protein builds muscles. Well, yes, that's true. But just because you eat more protein doesn't mean you're going to have more muscles. And it's an expensive part of your nutrition. So let's just focus on that part for a little bit. So how much protein does the average person need? Well, if you're an average male adult, you need about 56 grams or about 4 ounces of protein every day. Gals need a little bit less, about 46 grams. But the average American eats about 102 grams. So we generally eat about twice as much protein as we really need. So if you're going to eat 56 grams, what does that mean in actual food? Well, during an average day, if you drank 1 cup of milk, that would give you 8 grams. 3 ounces of meat would give you 21 grams. A cup of dry beans, about 16 grams. And 8 ounces of yogurt would give you 11 grams. So that brings you up to your total. So you can see it's not a lot of food and not necessarily expensive food. So speaking of expense, what would that cost? So the milk would cost you about 27 cents. 3 ounces of chicken breast would be about 37 cents. A cup of dry beans, about 16 cents, and an 8 ounce of yogurt, about 125 cents. You say, oh, wow, that yogurt, that adds quite a bit. So the total would be 205 cents. But if you changed your diet a little bit and added an ounce of meat, that would be 50 cents, stayed with the same beans, and added 2 eggs, that would give you a total of 78 cents for the day rather than 205. So you can see you could cut your cost for protein more than in half by some rather simple changes. So if I do eat more protein than I need, does that hurt? Well, it definitely hurts your wallet. We just got done seeing that. Protein is expensive, and we generally eat much more than we need. Dr. Humans might comment on this, but the protein that we eat has nitrogen atoms in it, and your body, your kidneys need to get rid of those, the excess ones that you have. So if you're eating more protein than you need, your kidneys have a little more work to do to get rid of that nitrogen. And that is one of the ways we measure your kidney function, is by measuring the nitrogen in your blood. So especially if you have kidney failure already, might be on dialysis or something, your doctors will probably recommend that you reduce your protein intake a bit. But other than that, does more protein hurt? Well, the protein all by itself is not such a big deal, but as Mandy mentioned, it's often combined with other things that are not good for us, things like lots of saturated fat, things like lots of salt. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But what does your body do with the extra protein that you bring in besides getting rid of the nitrogen in the kidneys? Well, it basically burns it up. So it's like putting wood in your furnace to heat your house. Would you like to buy wood for 4 cents a pound that's firewood, or would you buy furniture for $4 a pound and break it up and feed it to your furnace? Obviously, nobody would even think of doing that. So when you're eating extra protein and buying expensive protein, in many ways um, you're basically wasting your money. Dr. Fretts just talked about processed meats, and this is her giving a special presentation at the American Heart Association about her initial findings on processed meat. When you ask people if they eat any meat, frequently they'll say, well, yes, I do. And then they might bring up examples like this, spam, bologna, hot dogs, Vienna sausages, and so on. Let's just take a quick look at a comparison between eating Spam, for example, versus 80% lean hamburger. And a little announcement here. I just got done helping my son uh, with his Angus cattle, and we live on a ranch, and so I'm very familiar with hamburger. But there's other excellent protein, as we talked about, in terms of chicken and pork and so on as well. But if you eat enough Spam for your 56 grams of protein in a day, it's about 57% water, and that's about the same as hamburger. About 12% protein. Again, a little bit more protein in the hamburger than in the Spam, but it costs you $4.50 for your 50 grams of protein in Spam, and it would only cost you $3 for 50 grams of protein with hamburger, and that's at the current prices of $4 a pound. So I'm not minimizing that. One of the big factors, as Mandy mentioned again, is that you will get 2.5 times as much sodium as you need for that day by eating that amount of Spam, and you'll only get 8% of your total salt intake for the day with lean hamburger. So it's much, much, much lower in sodium than the Spam. If you calculate it out, even the fat that you get in both Spam and hamburger is more expensive in the Spam. So even for the same thing, you're spending a lot more money. And that's my quick introduction to nutrition in your pocketbook. So